Waters World is on tonight.
Did you make enough mistakes yourself to lose the election?
Well, I will say no, Matt. I don't think that will surprise you.
Hillary Clinton writes a book about why she lost the election. But Waters Words is going to tell you what really happened. Plus,
thanks to Antifa and the supposed anti-fascist brigade for exposing what the radical left truly is, and you can all go to hell, you pathetic, lying, stupid jackasses.
Ben Shapiro schooling snowflakes at Berkeley during his long-awaited speech. Tonight, he joins us exclusively with reaction. And
is there any truth to the rumor that you're just trying to get a campaign manager so you have a person to buy you beer?
No, that is a falsehood.
Some say politics is an old man's game, but not in Kansas, where 16-year-old Jack Bergeson is running as a Democrat in next year's governor's race. Waters World begins right now. Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. What happened with Hillary? That's the subject of tonight's Waters Words. Did you guys hear that Hillary has a book out? How could you not? She's working harder to sell the book than she did to win the election. The title of her book is What Happened, explaining why she lost to Donald Trump. But we're going to tell you what really happened. Here we go.
When you said basket of deplorables, you energized.
No, but they were already energized.
But you offended some people who didn't personally feel deplorable at all.
I don't buy that.
I buy it. The deplorables comment was the equivalent of Romney's 47% gaffe. Remember where he basically said half the country's made up of helpless victims dependent on government? But Hillary's was worse, and she doubled down on it. Maybe Hillary is the one who's irredeemable. And here's Hillary saying Trump exploited the deplorables.
He was willing to play, let's not forget, Islamophobic politics, homophobic politics, sexist politics. I mean, he hit every single area of resentment and grievance that people were feeling. And his racism, which was endemic to his campaign, wasn't subtle at all.
Islamophobic politics? 60% of the country supports the travel ban. Homophobic? Trump supports gay marriage and just appointed an openly gay ambassador to Germany. Sexist politics? Trump didn't tell Americans not to vote for Hillary because she's a woman. He said don't vote for Hillary because she's crooked. And Trump won because of racism? Trump won 58% of the white vote. Romney won 59% of the white vote. Did that make Romney even more of a racist than Trump? Come on. The numbers don't lie, Hill. Here she is blaming none other than the New York Times.
It seemed as if many of those in charge of political coverage at the New York Times have viewed me with hostility and skepticism. They've applied what's sometimes called the Clinton rules. As a result, a lot of journalists see their job as exposing the devious machinations of the secretive Clinton machine. The Times has by no means been the only or even the worst offender, but its treatment has stung the most. History will agree that this coverage affected the outcome of the election. Besides, I had to get this off my chest.
Really, Hillary? This is the newspaper that endorsed you, savaged Donald Trump, and buried your embarrassing WikiLeaks revelations. I can't believe Clinton complained about the New York Times. It's like if she complained about NBC News. Oh, wait, she did. Writing in her book, Lauer had turned what should have been a serious discussion into a pointless ambush. What a waste of time. I can't say I didn't fantasize about shaking some sense into Lauer while I was out there. So Matt Lauer, asking Hillary about her emails cost her the election? Of course Lauer had to ask about the emails. 64% of Americans believe you committed a crime. That brings us to Comey, the former FBI director.
What's the biggest cause of your loss? What part is Comey? What part's Russia? What part's you?
Well, I think the determining factor was the intervention by Comey on October 28th. I mean, as I write in the book, and I could have put much more into the book, and, you know, independent observers like Nate Silver and others say yes, but for that intervention, I would have won.
Comey reopened the investigation a week before the election because he found your emails in Anthony Weiner's laptop, a convicted sex offender. That wouldn't have happened if you hadn't put your emails on an unsecured server. Furthermore, Trump beat you in the blue state of Wisconsin by 23,000 votes. You never even campaigned there. Did Comey tell you not to? I could do a whole show on this, but instead go to foxnews.com/opinion. Greg Jarrett has a great piece where he compiles 56 reasons Hillary Clinton has given why she didn't win, including suburban women, Bernie Sanders, the Electoral College, Twitter, Netflix, content farms in Macedonia, whatever that is, voter ID laws, and of course, Fox News Channel. Here's what sums up Hillary's campaign perfectly. This is what she did on the biggest night of her entire life, election night.
The waiting was excruciating. I decided to do the least likely thing in the world and take a nap. Hopefully, when I woke up, the picture would have improved. I was so bone tired that even with all the stress, I was able to close my eyes and fall right asleep.
No wonder Trump called her low energy. She slept through the loss of the biggest states, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio. I guess Trump was right when he said she didn't have the strength or the stamina to run a country. And speaking of running the country, here's Hillary's latest assessment of our president.
I think this president and some of the people around him pose a clear and present danger to our country. Domestically, to our institutions of democracy, our self-governance, our rule of law. Internationally, in so many ways, because of the unpredictability, then the fact that there is no strategic plan, there's just a reactive, emotional, visceral kind of behavior.
Whoa. It's a very serious charge coming from someone with her experience. It's a loaded statement. In the self-titled movie Clear and Present Danger, a politician used the phrase clear and present danger to justify the CIA taking somebody out. Now, after the Scalise shooting, I would expect Democrats, especially Hillary Clinton, to be more careful with their language. But Hillary has never accepted any responsibility for her actions, which is why she lost. And that's what happened. Still ahead, Ben Shapiro joins me hot off his long-awaited speech at Berkeley. He'll tell us what it was like behind the scenes.
You can't take me for a ride. I'm not a fool now, so you better run it out. Trouble, yeah, trouble now.
Some say politics is an old man's game, but not in Kansas, where 16-year-old Jack Bergeson is running as a Democrat in next year's governor's race. Here he is on Kimmel.
I want to get the younger generation involved in politics. Politics is kind of degenerating in our country, and we need the younger generation to get involved in order to fix that.
Is there any truth to the rumor that you're just trying to get a campaign manager so you have a person to buy you beer?
No, that is a falsehood.
All right, Jack. Bergeson joins me now. So, Jack, straight up, is this a stunt to get girls, yes or no?
Oh, no. Maybe
I don't know. I don't know.
Might be a side effect, but, I don't really, that wasn't my intention.
Okay. You don't have a girlfriend now?
No, I do not.
Okay. You probably are going to have a few after you run for governor. What is your platform as a 16-year-old?
My platform is somewhat loosely based on the platform of the Bernie Sanders campaign, but I have some differences.
What was that Bernie Sanders campaign platform?
I am, pro raising the minimum wage, pro radical change on health care, although I approach
pro radical change. What do you mean by that?
Well, although I believe in universal health care at the national level, I believe what we need to do at the state level is ultimately implement something that they tried to pass earlier this year in Nevada, where essentially the state would run a program alongside Medicaid on the Obamacare exchanges and offer premiums much lower than currently available.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you want to base your platform around Bernie Sanders. He didn't do too well as a candidate. What do you think of Donald Trump?
I'm not really going to comment on President Trump. I think he is a revolutionary figure, which is, that is something that can be said about him. But I'm focusing on my people and in Kansas and my issues in my campaign. I'm not going to say anything about the president.
Okay. Well, you're going to be asked about President Trump. I hope you're prepared to answer a lot of questions because, as you know, Kansas voted for Trump in the general election. So why do you think you're qualified as a 16-year-old? Don't have a lot of life experience. Being a governor is kind of a big job.
This is one thing President Trump has displayed. People want something different. They don't necessarily want an experienced politician. They want someone who can relate to them, who cares about them, and to...
Yeah. So they want an inexperienced politician, and you're going to be the most inexperienced politician ever.
Yes.
Have you thought about a jacket and tie as you run for governor? Or are you going to do the polo look?
I'm going to do more casual because I think, people ultimately, back in the day, it was tended to be more formal, but I think it shows that if you dress more like everyday people, I think it shows a common relationship between the candidates and ultimately who's elected and the people who elected them.
Do you ever think about putting the collar up on the polo?
No, I don't really. I'm not a huge fan of that look, actually.
Whoa. You just made your first campaign faux pas. Never come on Watters World and insult the pop collar. But I'll let you slide because I know you're a political rookie. Now, you're forgetting one thing. You're supposed to tell people where to go to send you money. That's like Politics 101. You have a website or anything like that?
Yes, we do, but we haven't got the fundraising set up quite yet. We're working on it.
All right. Well, I'd work on that pretty quickly because, as you know, money and politics, they go hand in hand. Jack, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you.
Debunking the left's myth that climate change is responsible for the recent hurricanes. But first, a special investigation into Antifa.
Get it! No! Knock the
As we explained in recent shows, Antifa, short for anti-fascist, pegs themselves as peaceful activists. But in reality, many of these masked protesters are just thugs, searching out violence against anybody who disagrees with their beliefs. And the violence that swept last weekend's rally in Portland, Oregon, is just the latest example.
Get it! No! Knock the off now! Let her go! Leave it! Let her go! Let her go!
And Antifa doesn't stop at attacking peaceful protesters and police officers. They're also threatening journalists.
Out! Go! Out! Don't touch me! Out! Bye. Out!
Why? Get out of here. Seriously, get the out of here. Like their politics, I have not. Phones, huh? Tough guy.
You believe what they say, though? You really believe them?
So, like, I mean,
That's
do
naive.
what? Well, by the same token,
That's naive.
Why would I?
Wow. I'm not a tough guy. I'm a journalist.
I'm not making a joke out of it, though. This is my life.
Who cares? Get your going out of here. Get
Anything
your
that has
phone
ever happened
out
or
of
ever
here.
existed.
The journalist in that video is Tim Pool, who's been covering protests around the world for years, and he joins me now. Well, I want everybody to know that I've been following you for a long time on Twitter because you were going through these Occupy Wall Street people back in the day. You know, you've done the Ferguson beat when they were rioting and shooting, and now you're embedded with these Antifa people, so you know the drill here on the streets. Why are they going after journalists specifically? Because most protest movements want the publicity.
Yeah, they don't want publicity, they want propaganda. So during Occupy Wall Street, for instance, they actually called themselves propagandists. And that's not me, accusing them of doing something. They actually said that they had a propaganda unit that would put this stuff together.
And what is the message that they're trying to convey?
It's a bit fractured, I guess. Basically, I think the one thing they all agree on is taking down the U.S. One of the things we saw them chanting in Berkeley was no Trump, no wall, no USA at all.
Wow.
But you've got communists.
So they're open borders people too.
Oh, totally. I think they're all pretty much globalists.
Okay.
They're I think they're mostly communists. There's communists, socialists, and anarchists. And I think when it comes to the violence, everyone always says they're anarchist extremists, but anarchists tend to be nonviolent, right? They have the non-aggression principle.
Okay.
So there are some anarchists which paradoxically, they will get violent, but it tends to be people who want some kind of workers' revolution in this country.
So you believe they're more communist than anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, and they don't like the United States system of capitalism, and they want to disrupt and cause mayhem and take everything down. So First of all, they can't fight, because if anybody's seen any videos of these people, they're punched like this, and they kick, and they use sticks. I mean, that's just totally cowardly. They look like they just left their parents' house, and they have a curfew later. When you're embedded in that scene with them, is it scarier than other groups that you've been involved in, Occupy Wall Street or Ferguson people?
Well, a lot of these people are the same people from Occupy Wall Street.
They are.
The same people from the battle in Seattle back in the day. You know,
Yeah.
I'd say they're mostly younger people.
They're like WTO protesters, those kind of people?
Yeah. You know, they used to chant anticapitalista.
What does that mean?
It means anti-capitalist.
Okay.
Now they chant antifascista.
Okay.
But you know, some of these people, they know who I am. They don't like me because they've actually approached me and told me to not film them breaking the law and only film the police when the police attack them.
Wow.
When I refused to do that, they actually threatened me.
So they are a propaganda outlet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And have they ever gone after you personally?
Oh yeah.
Like how?
I've been physically attacked several times. In Berkeley, they started posting information about me, and they make things up, really outrageous things, claiming that I stole $80,000 from Occupy Wall Street. Things are just ridiculously
So they're
untrue.
smear merchants.
Yeah, and I think the most alarming thing was when they posted photos of me, they included a picture of my mom.
Wow.
And a day before this rally in Berkeley, I actually got approached by a bunch of young men accusing me of being some alt-right Trump supporter, which is absolutely untrue.
Right.
I'm actually pretty liberal, and I almost got into a fight with these guys
Wow.
because they're this fake information they're putting out.
I saw some video, and I want to show the audience. Take a look at this. This is a veteran in a wheelchair who was surrounded by a bunch of Antifa people. Now, he takes the water bottle. Look at that. He takes the water bottle out of the guy's wheelchair and then just pours it on him. Now, this is a disabled veteran who's in a wheelchair. What kind of animals do that?
It's.
I mean, there's just no shame.
That video shocked me, man. I gotta say.
It's
and
so bad.
I've got people, you know, because like I said, I consider myself liberal. I've got a bunch of friends on the left who are telling me, why would I condemn Antifa? And then I just send them a link to that video. If you're going to attack someone in a wheelchair, if you're going to harass an elderly person, you have no sympathy from me.
And they punched female journalists. They've gone after people in wheelchairs. I mean, there's really no end in sight for these people. Now, speaking of condemning, Nancy Pelosi, who I don't agree with most of the time, but I actually do agree with her here, put out a statement about Antifa. She said this: "Our democracy has no room for inciting violence or endangering the public, no matter the ideology of those who commit such acts. The violent actions of people calling themselves Antifa in Berkeley this weekend deserve unequivocal condemnation." So if you're a left-wing violent group and Nancy Pelosi condemns you, I think you've gone too far.
But these people, you know, they said liberals get the bullet too.
Wow.
Yeah, they spray painted it on a wall in Berkeley. That's a known thing amongst.
So they're so far left because you said they're communists. They want to take out people like Pelosi.
They generally don't like liberals as much as they don't like conservatives, and they hate Nazis the most.
Wow. All right, Tim. Thanks a lot, and great reporting out there.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, the most unpredictable moments from our reporters covering the hurricanes. And Berkeley providing therapy sessions for students who can't handle conservative speakers like Ben Shapiro. He joins us next.
As far as the idea I'm a white supremacist, you see the thing on the top of my head, right? This funny hat. It's called a yarmulke. Hey, white supremacists aren't that fond of it.
On Saturday night, I just can't.
The reason that I am here is because fascism does not own this university. Because there are students who do want to hear differing views, who don't want to be told that they can only hear one view, who don't believe that the First Amendment should die under the jackboots and Birkenstocks of a bunch of anarchist communist pieces of garbage. Thanks to Antifa and the supposed anti-fascist brigade for exposing what the radical left truly is, all of America is watching because you guys are so stupid. It's horrifying. I am grateful, and you can all go to hell, you pathetic, lying, stupid jackasses.
That's a fired up Ben Shapiro this week, speaking at UC Berkeley, where the school that offered counseling to students and faculty who were offended by Shapiro's words also took extraordinary steps to keep Antifa protesters out, including beefing up its police presence, installing concrete barriers, and okaying cops to use pepper spray. Measures costing the school, you ready? $600,000. But while America is preoccupied with Antifa thugs running amok on college campuses, our friends in the UK are facing new, real terror threats after a homemade bomb exploded on a subway car at the height of rush hour in London. Ben Shapiro is editor-in-chief of DailyWire.com and host of The Ben Shapiro Show. He joins me now. So, Ben, they spent $600,000 to prevent violence at your speech. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure whether to be satisfied or insulted. I guess they're a bunch of Keynesian leftists. So from that perspective, I just created an enormous number of infrastructure jobs. But it really has nothing to do with me. It has to do with Antifa, obviously. There were businesses that boarded up early. I know that the Bank of America actually boarded up its own ATMs because they were afraid Antifa was going to go crazy and break them. They did what they were supposed to do, the authorities. And that's really the key here, is that for the first time in a year, the legal authorities said to the cops, do what you need to do, arrest people who show up with masks, arrest people who show up with weapons ready to do harm. And the police were staffed up. I mean, hundreds of police officers ringing the place. It was pretty obvious to Antifa that if they started anything, they were going to get their skulls crushed.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
they decided better of that.
They finally woke up because they've been allowing these people to run wild for the last year and a half. It looks like overwhelming force and preventative action is the way to go. So what was the message of your speech, and was it handled well by the university? Did the students boo you? Were you hissed? Were you called names? What was it like?
So, I mean, normally I don't even care if I'm booed or hissed or anything. That's fine. And people who protest, that's fine too. I may think you're wrong. I may think you're dumb, but that's your right. The one thing that the university did wrong, I think they did the security right, but the one thing they did wrong was with regard to the allowing people into the crowd itself. They blocked off 1,000 seats and wouldn't let anybody up into the balcony because they suggested that Antifa might go up there and throw objects down onto the students below.
Oh, my God.
They made everybody who picked up an ID who picked up a ticket do so with ID, which, you know, in other contexts is racist, but in this context is totally fine.
Yeah, right. You don't need an ID to vote, but you have to show one when you see Shapiro.
That's exactly right. And then there were a bunch of leftists who had bought tickets so that they wouldn't come, or who had reserved tickets, they wouldn't come. So we had all of these standby tickets available, and we had a line of like 200 people outside who wanted to come in. And instead of allowing that to happen, the authorities just grabbed the tickets and said nobody else gets in.
Can I just explain to the audience who you are? Because a lot of these people don't understand. You know, Ben Shapiro he's not a provocateur. He's not some flamethrower. You're considered, I guess, a mainstream conservative intellectual, kind of a polemicist sometimes, but you're not one of these guys that, you know, goes out there and is mean-spirited and just, you know, throws haymakers at people to be mean.
No, that's not my goal. My goal is to go out there and say things that I think are true, and if it makes you angry, then that's really your problem. But I'm not going out there to say deliberately provocative things just for the sake of saying deliberately provocative things.
Well, let me show something.
Weird example.
Let me show you an example of one of your exchanges with one of these students about abortion. Let's see what it was.
Why exactly do you think a first trimester fetus has moral value?
Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells. If left to its natural processes, it will grow into a baby. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? So you're going to draw the line at the heartbeat? Because it's very hard to draw the line at the heartbeat. There are people who are adults who are alive because of a pacemaker. They need some sort of outside force generating their heartbeat. Okay, are you going to do it based on brain function? Okay, well, what about people who are in a coma? Should we just kill them? Right? The problem is, anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults. So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value, not necessarily being a human alone.
Okay, so when you're asleep, can I stab you?
I'm still considered sentient when I'm asleep.
Okay, if you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well, then, no, I guess not. I mean,
I'm glad you answered that because I have no interest in actually murdering you.
I mean, I think that's exactly what Berkeley needs. Here's my theory on this. You tell me if I have this accurate. I feel like these liberal campuses view conservative speakers as germs, and they don't want any exposure to conservative thought. So, you know, the germaphobes, they sanitize everything around the house, and they don't expose themselves to anything. They might get the sniffles. So then when they're exposed to the smallest little germ, all hell breaks loose. They get sick, they riot, they burn things. So they're living in this cocoon, and they just can't handle conservatism because they've never been exposed to it. And that is exactly what you did. I thought that was a healthy, normal dialogue.
Yeah, I thought so too, and I think that your analysis, is, especially with regard to the students, is exactly right. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about the event is that there were a bunch of people on the left who showed up and asked questions. I always thank people when they're from the left and they show up to ask questions. It was a really cordial dialogue, and that's what it's supposed to be. Right. But outside, you had people who were literally chanting, "Speech is violence." Okay, speech is not violence. That's the whole point here. Like, no one died because I spoke last night. It's totally insane.
I want to show the audience. I think we have this. There's a poster about you that says fascist intellectual thuggery in the service of the Trump-Pence fascist regime. Wow. I mean, I didn't even know you were that big of a Trump supporter to begin with, but do they even know what fascist is? And I only have a few seconds left, so go ahead.
No, I mean, if they knew what fascist was, then they would have been a little bit more, I think, doubtful about going into the middle of the plaza and shouting about President Trump. If you're really a fascist, then, you know, Big Orange Hitler would have shown up and shut him down. But that obviously didn't happen because we don't live in a fascist country, and President Trump is not a fascist president.
All right, well, listen, at the end of the month, they have Bannon, Coulter, and Milo speaking at Berkeley, so they're going to have to hire a lot of therapists. Ben, always a pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Coming up, the 11-year-old who offered to mow the White House lawn enters Water's World. But first, when your friends tell you global warming caused the recent hurricanes, we'll explain exactly how to respond to them.
It's all right.
While thousands of people suffer catastrophic damage from Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, the mainstream media is busy pretending to be scientists, suggesting, without proof, that climate change is to blame for the back-to-back storms.
When you see 3 Category 4 hurricanes all on the same map at the same time, does the thought occur to you, geez, you know, maybe there is something to this climate change thing?
The evidence shows that the effects of climate change, including warmer waters and sea level rise, are making these kinds of extreme weather events worse.
Why this is the worst storm we've ever seen, etc., has to do with climate change. And people who deny that, they should start naming all of these next hurricanes after Hurricane Limbaugh, Hurricane Pruitt, Hurricane Palin, you know, Hurricane Trump.
Anyone who believes that there is no such thing as global warming must be blind or unintelligent. Lord, please save us all.
Joining me now is Chief Meteorologist at Weather Bell Analytics, Joe Bastardi. So, Joe, let's address what Joy Behar said. She said this is the worst storm that we've ever seen. Is that even true?
1935, the Florida Keys. I guess she doesn't know about that. Camille, back in 1969. Now, watch ask Joy if the 1821 hurricane, which was a Category 3 all the way to New York, came up the eastern seaboard, what would happen if that happened again today? There are estimates that that track with that intensity would cause $1 trillion damage today because of the way our coast is exposed to all this. So you could go over season after season, storm after storm. And here's what happens. These people are climatic ambulance chasers. They don't say boo until something happens, and then they get up and scream, it's climate change. Well, where were all these people before the season when my company, weatherbell.com, came out and said that the major hurricane hit drought would end this year? It would be a high impact season because of development in close to the United States coast. We were very, very concerned about this. We even had a giant red area where we thought all the action was going to be. And lo and behold, the storms come in there. So what I want to know is if these people don't say anything until after, why is it that someone that said something before the season has no credibility? That's very interesting how that works.
Yeah, well, you'd have to go on The View and ask Joy that, and I don't think you're going to be doing that, Joe. When people say that the warmer temperatures or the warmer oceans aren't causing the hurricanes, but they're exacerbating their intensity, how would you respond to someone like that, say, at a bar?
Well, I'm trying to figure out why we've had so many more intense hurricanes than Harvey and Irma. I mean, go and look as far as barometric pressure goes. These storms were not in the top 10, let's say. I think Harvey was
Irma and Harvey not in the top 10 hurricanes in the
as far as landfalling intensity. The metric that we have is the landfalling intensity. See, we didn't have recons back in the 1800s. All right, in the hurricane season of 1886, where 7 hurricanes hit the United States, 3 or 4 of them major. So you don't know how strong they were out over the middle of the water.
Yeah,
we know how strong they were when they hit land.
Yeah, what year it was in the 1800s? Did they have cars that were putting a lot of carbon into the atmosphere back then? I don't think so.
No, let me get my point across. The constant metric is landfall intensity. And these storms, when they made landfall, for instance, Carla was a much bigger storm than Harvey. Harvey just got stuck underneath a cold trough of low pressure. But Carla had hurricane force winds the entire Texas Gulf Coast. Go look at the 1935 hurricane, or Hurricane Donna, which did not weaken coming to the Florida coast as Irma did. And Hurricane Donna, with what it caused up the eastern seaboard. There are countless examples of storms that are more powerful than this that have hit the United States. We see them out in the water, Jesse, but we didn't see them before.
That's true. All right, so we've dealt with that. Now, I want to read something from a New York Times opinion piece. This is from David Leonard. This is what he says. Smoking, drunken driving, and seatbeltless riding each created a public health crisis. Climate change on its way to becoming a far worse public health crisis than any of those other problems. Already it has aggravated droughts, famines, and deadly heat waves. In the United States, global warming seems to be contributing to the spread of Lyme disease. So worse than smoking and drunken driving. Now, global warming takes the cake. How would you respond to that, Joe?
Well, if you actually look at the statistics, this is not the case. In fact, there's an argument because of the way the globe is warming. There's more warming occurring in cold, dry areas during their winter seasons that we can decrease the amount of activity. In fact, in our weatherbell.com preseason hurricane forecast, I explained why warming may actually be distorting the pressure patterns in the northern hemisphere to decrease the amount of tropical storm activity that hits the United States coast, or the major activity. This year, though, when I saw the preseason, I saw the way the pressure patterns were going to set up, I said, look out, we're going to get hit. It's no secret as to what goes on when the month of August turns cold while you're in the warm cycle of the Atlantic Ocean, which is what we are.
Right.
We've been in the warm AMO before. We were in the 40s and 50s, and people don't know what happens. So these people prey on these people because the average person doesn't know what happened back then. But if you study it, you'll see there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right. I love how you talk about the preseason like this is like football season's around the corner. Joe?
Well, there's a lot of preparation that goes into our forecast. We just don't put something out. In the private sector, you have to be right or you get fired.
That's right. Absolutely. Hopefully I don't get fired either. All right, up next, the president has a new groundskeeper, and he's 11 years old. The National Park Service may have some competition on their hands when it comes to maintaining the White House lawn. A few months ago, 10-year-old Frank Giacchio wrote a letter to President Trump offering to mow the lawn at the White House. Much to his surprise, the president took him up on the offer earlier. I spoke with Frank, who prefers to be called FX, about his letter. So, FX, you have your own lawn mowing business?
Yes.
So do you have other 11-year-old kids that you hire too and that you send them at, or is it just you alone?
It's just me alone.
Okay, so you go across the neighborhood, and how much do you get paid to mow someone's lawn?
I charge $8, but if their lawn is huge or I have to do extra, I might charge a bit more.
Good capitalist. So how much money do you make on an average summer week, would you say?
I would say about $8.
$8. Okay, so one lawn a week. And do you put the money away in a savings account or your piggy bank, or do you spend it on candy?
I put it in my bank.
You put it in your bank. You're a smart man. Much smarter than most Americans. So when you wrote the letter to the president and there was a reply, you probably became pretty famous in your neighborhood.
Yeah, not many people had seen it because they don't watch that channel probably, but I showed it to a few friends of mine. Immediately, they were pretty epic, and then it's just started growing. And a few people, I think, they want me to mow their lawn.
Oh, so it helped your business?
Yep.
That's excellent. So you're going to the White House. Do you know when you're going to go and take a look at the lawn with the groundskeeper?
Still no date.
All right, still no date. Maybe after people at the White House watch Water's World, they might put you up on the calendar. Now, I just get a little advice. When you go there and you're mowing the White House lawn, don't mow Michelle Obama's garden. She's going to be very angry if you start mowing over there, okay? Just leave that alone.
Okay.
All right? That's my advice. Now, do you have any plans to spend your money on anything specific with the money that you're putting away in the bank account from the lawn work?
Well, I and my dad are going to split on a leaf blower to keep my business going into the fall. And then I'm planning of getting a really big Lego set.
A Lego set. That's smart. I thought you were going to then reinvest in a snowblower so you could keep it going into the winter, but I would probably go with the Lego set.
Yeah.
All right. FX. Great nickname, by the way. What's the deal with the FX nickname?
Well, my real name is Frank, and my parents just wanted it to be a bit short, and so I wasn't the person who chose it. My parents were.
Okay. Shorter than Frank? I think FX has more syllables than Frank, but you know what? I'm not going to get involved in it. I think it's a great nickname, and it's one of the stations that Fox owns, so can't go wrong there. FX, thanks very much, and good luck mowing the White House lawn.
Thank you.
Well, we have some great news to share. FX's dream came true. He spent the morning at the White House on Friday mowing the Rose Garden lawn and working with some of the groundskeeping crew. And in a very special surprise, he got to meet President Trump. he just mows right past him. So congratulations, FX. We're very proud of you. I think the president's proud of you too. He's just trying to shake your hand. Looks like FX is hard at work. There he goes. Finally, there you go. Yeah, shake hands with the president. There you go. Then you can finish mowing. All right. Up next, some of the lighter moments captured during our hurricane coverage. Over the past 2 weeks, we've witnessed the South suffer massive devastation from Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. And our intrepid reporters were out there on the scene to capture every moment. And sometimes those updates included a few surprises. Roll the tape.
Here's
You guys some Galveston beer.
Well, thank you. That will be nice for after we are done covering this. But there you go.
This homeowner, his name is Jack, and there is no stone that won't be overturned going door to door with Sheriff Nails because Jack is actually, we have just rescued, I'm hoping this is alive, we have rescued a hermit crab. Jack, what did we rescue?
A hermit crab. Yes.
What do you think about the storm, the power, the ferocity, and the risk to your own safety at this point?
Well, at this point, I'm very relieved to discover that as we speak, the eye of the storm is practically due south of us by 220 miles, okay, because it's crossing the 80th meridian, which is 80 degrees west longitude. So I'm not so worried because it's so far away, and it's bearing as of 8 p.m.
Westbound.
Well, not just westbound, it was 275 degrees. I don't think it's going to get much worse than what we're seeing right here.
All right, thanks. The forecasters and meteorologists do suggest it is going to get worse than it currently is throughout the next 12 hours.
Mom, are you dressed?
You're full of surprises.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, hi, sweetie. Oh, I heard you say hi. I heard you say I'm not in my underwear.
Yeah, well, are you in
No,
your?
I'm not.
Stuart sends his best wishes. I do. Stuart Varney, do you like him, or is he not one of the ones you like?
I don't like Lou Dobbs.
Oh dear. I knew we stayed too long.
That was reporter Jeff Flock's mom, by the way. Oh, God. All right, we want to wish the victims of these hurricanes all the best, and we hope we're able to bring you a little laughter and levity, even if it's just for a moment. That's all for us tonight. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, I'm Waters, and this is my world.
Say the word and we go. You can be my flica. Girl, I'll be a flico, mama sister. I would never make a promise that I can't keep. I promise that